It's late at night. You just got home after a long day of school or work or both, and you just want to relax. If you're like me, you're turning on one of those games that you can just idle to. No thoughts, just a fun, chill way to end the night. I, personally, love turning my brain off with some house flipper. So, let's get into the game. Let's see. We'll get a new house. Let's look at the pics. Looks good. All right, time to work on it. Okay, your fun time was so chill, you got them all down your spine. It's always surprising to come across something like that when you're not expecting to. It's a masterful way to achieve horror. I mean, it's basically what jump scares are wanting to be. A sudden shock as you're faced with something frightening you didn't expect. A scare that you can't plan or prepare for. I am a huge fan of this feeling in games. I guess that's not shocking, as I've been kind of building my brand around how much I enjoy horror. But today, I want to take a look at some of my favorite examples of this. Horror in non-horror games. I'm sure some of these won't be surprising, but it's just something I've been wanting to talk about. If you have any other examples, feel free to mention them down in the comments. Maybe you've seen some I haven't, and I can't include all of the ones I have seen, but I'm always down for some extra info. But anyway,
Alright, let's go.
I'm someone who is deeply affected by audio. I can get jump scared or whatever and be pretty fine, but something as simple as creepy music is enough to make me uncomfortable and potentially cut my gaming sesh a little short. Everyone has heard the drowning music from Sonic. It's pretty well known and sounds far too intense. The first time I played Sonic was, weirdly, in my elementary school's computer lab. That's right, I'm a hashtag Zoomer, so I didn't get to play Sonic the way it was intended on my Flintstones TV powered by a rat on a wheel. But even in this room full of people and a teacher, the drowning music shook me to my core. I had really loved the game up until that point, but it was so stressful I thought I might never play it again. Obviously I did, and now I appreciate that song for adding to the experience, but I think a lot of that is how I deal with audio in games now. I love that I can say Sonic has affected my life in more ways than one. But let's look at the opposite end of the spectrum. A game with essentially no sound, except for the audible silence in the air. Portal. I knew about Portal, but I never tried to play it until I beat Portal 2 with my boyfriend. I was so excited because I love Portal 2, but when I started the first game, I was immediately stunned by the sterile-sounding atmosphere. The slight breeze you hear that makes no sense with the closed-off environment you're in. I mean, I replayed the first few levels of the game to talk about it here, and I still get goosebumps. You feel so alone until you don't, and that is terrifying to me. Maybe I'm just paranoid, but I constantly felt like someone was over my shoulder. So little was going on that I felt like I was imagining sounds behind me. The very first time I played, I had to stop after a couple of levels. When I could continue, I was still freaked out, but thought, hey, that's just a fun bonus. I like scary stuff. I can deal with it. Then you start to learn you aren't really alone. The Ratman hints throughout the game make sure you have to be a little aware of that. But I don't really want to talk about the Ratman aspect of Portal in this video. It's been covered by everyone, including me, in an iceberg video I've made before, if you want to check it out. So let's switch to a different Valve game, Garry's Mod. I didn't have any friends who I played games with online growing up, so I would often find myself in the Gmod sandbox, just messing around with all the spawns and seeing what I could put together. But something about Gmod always freaked me out. I would get on GM Construct a lot in particular and just look around. I've always liked to see what secrets I could find in games, but exploring the barren map just made me uneasy. The whole goal of a sandbox is that you can do whatever in it. It's designed to be pretty empty, but it still got me pretty good. Again, there's no sound really either, which just adds to the whole thing. The best thing about audio in games is that it can be impactful with a lot, but especially, personally, with very little. Hardly any sound at all is just unnerving. That's why I still don't play Minecraft without some kind of music playing. Minecraft as a whole is much closer to a horror game to me than I think it should be for anybody. I was so freaked out the first time I played that it kind of ruined wearing headphones for me. That sounds dramatic, but I was so genuinely skeeved out by the environmental noises that I would imagine sounds in my real life. So I started watching YouTube on my phone in the background just to get through it. But Minecraft scares me on a bigger level than just its audio. The game feels so empty, but empty in a way that feels so suffocating. I can't explore the game without just feeling lost. I shouldn't be there, and there's someone observing me that I can't see. I think that Minecraft might be too open for me. I guess I think of it like the ocean, in a way. I have no clue what's going on there, and I've only seen the surface, but even that's enough to give me the idea of it. I'm good. When Herobrine was a popular, real fake thing going on, I fully believed it, because yeah, of course there's a scary guy in this game. I knew that, I just hadn't seen him before. I didn't think it was Notch's brother or anything, but that kind of weird, creepy character just seemed to fit in. It's pretty funny to me, because I never got too freaked out by the things that were meant to freak you out a little bit. Like the monsters at night, because I made sure my character was in bed right at sunset and I never explored. So the things that were put there specifically to kind of unnerve the player, I never really got affected by. But just looking around the world and thinking about how alone, but not alone I am, terrifying. This has all been kind of abstract in a way, very personal topics for me specifically. But I do want to talk about a few that the developers knew about and were pretty purposeful. I think it's fun that you can just out of left field freak out a player, and if I knew how to make games, that's exactly what I would do. A fun example of this that I can both laugh at and fully acknowledge would scare me pretty bad if it happened, is the prank calling in The Sims. The Sims 1 is already kind of eerie for some reason. I think it's maybe just a little uncanny. And the prank calls can range from what to oh my god. And it doesn't help that the music that plays when you get a call like this is pretty startling. It's the same music that would play if a burglar showed up. The music is supposed to jar at you, and that takes the funny prank calls into a weirder direction. My favorites of the calls you can get kind of embody what would scare me the most. They're coming soon. Maybe you should think twice about opening the door. Or when my main man, Ghostface, pops up and says, "You've been chosen. They will come soon." The letter pops up in some nice, friendly red text just to reassure you of your safety. I think I particularly like these calls because my favorite movie of all time is Scream. And phone calls are the format, and Ghostface popping up just wraps everything up so nicely. But at least in The Sims, you've got a good idea of what's going on around you. You have a view of the whole neighborhood, so there's some safety to that. A game that doesn't allow so much freedom is House Flipper. I mentioned House Flipper at the very beginning of this video, and that's because when this game decides to mess with you, it goes pretty hard. For the most part, this game is simple. You do jobs, buy houses, try to turn a profit. It's pretty relaxing, though I do exclusively play it with YouTube videos in the background. Because of, surprise, environmental noises can set me on edge a bit. And as you can see from everything I've talked about, that's the case with any game. I think that's the secret key to unlock me being a little afraid, is just having weird sounds playing. But it doesn't count. It gets a pass on that, because if I include every game that just has a sound that's weird, every game, so it gets a pass. There are a few houses you can buy, though, that are pretty scary on their own. There's the Samarta Myers house, a house that features a ton of haunted stuff. The only person you ever see in the game is a ghost in this house, and a grave you have to dig up in the backyard to cleanse the place. There's also room 404, a haunted apartment with its door chained shut like Silent Hill. Both of the places are pretty unsettling. It's a bit of a shock in this game to be faced with something scary instead of just doing your house flipper thing. You can cleanse them of their spirits, but lights will turn off on their own and footsteps can appear behind you. You feel like there is a ghost in the house with you, especially with Samarta Myers when there is a ghost in the house with you. There's also houses in the game that just seem off, like this one house that just has blood everywhere. No paranormal happenings, you just bought a crime scene that you now have to clean up and sell. When I came across that house for the first time, I was several hours into a whole day of just flipping house, and it caught me so off guard. I called my boyfriend into the room so we could explore it together, because I was scared that maybe the murderer was just in the house somewhere. I love this kind of scare, just pure discomfort caused by a sudden change in what you know. I had played a lot of the game before coming across something that scared me, and when that happens, you feel like you've lost what little control of the environment you even had. In House Flipper, you're armed with nothing really, besides a broom, a rolling painter, a flamethrower, nothing helpful. You couldn't do anything if Samarta Myers decided to square up instead of crawl off. So smooth transitioning to a game where you might feel the opposite of that, let's all pretend to be Batman for a moment. Seems pretty sick, right? Well, except for that. And this. For a guy who spends so much of this game beating so many people up, Batman really gets fucked up by Scarecrow here. And so did you, and everyone else who played this game. Scarecrow's presence in Arkham Asylum was pretty much secret until you first encounter him. As Batman, you could fight your way out of any problem. Well, except for that. But using that anger as fuel, you're pretty unstoppable. But when Scarecrow comes in, you suddenly feel super vulnerable. The world stops making sense, and walls begin to crumble, doors lead into the same room you were just in, ultimately culminating into the joyless, soulless world that is Scarecrow's domain. This is the first, and one of the very few times in the entire game that you're not allowed to make any mistakes. If Scarecrow sees you, it's game over. Even then, you're not out of the clear. Scarecrow will just appear to taunt you in the game over scene. Then, in your last encounter with Scarecrow, the developers decide to throw a curveball just to keep you on your toes. Just as you realize you're being ambushed by him, the game performs a fake crash. This crash screen felt like it went on forever when you first encountered it. Glitches, real or fake, can be pretty unnerving. They add a bit of chaos to make a game's atmosphere just a little bit more disturbing. Such is the case for Luigis Mansion, a somewhat perfectly innocent entry into the expanding Marioverse that was completely changed by a glitch that occurs in the attic of the titular mansion. When lightning flashes through the window, Luigi's shadow does this funny little thing where it looks like he's hanging? A strange thing to encounter in such a family-friendly game for sure, but seems pretty obvious in hindsight that the developers were not in fact hinting that Luigi was so tired of playing second plumber to his brother that he took the most extreme measure. It's just a model glitch, but the theories that came from it were way more interesting, so that's what people ran with. It is pretty jarring to see though, and coupled with the actual ghosts in this haunted house, it sets up for a pretty grim reality for the Marioverse that usually seems so bright. Nintendo does like to add some spooks in from time to time, but ultimately they seem to do it best when they don't mean to. In Splatoon, you can hear some pretty disconcerting sounds in the boss room. It really does just sound like screaming. It's not the kind of thing you'd expect to hear from this game. On the surface, it's such a fun and cute little Nintendo safe shooter, but the lore of the franchise really had people wondering what could be going on there. People were so concerned that the director of Splatoon was asked about the screams in an interview, and he said that it was the first time he had even heard of it. He said that it could have been a work of another staff member, but he'd have to play the game and see what he could find. I don't think it's a curse game a la creepypasta, but the sounds are genuinely weird, so the fact that they were unintentional just adds some mysteriousness to it. Maybe the sounds weren't even meant to be heard. The last thing I want to talk about today is kind of like that. Never meant to be found by a casual player, but with time, all secrets come out, so here we are. I want to talk about this one because it's one of my favorite things I've heard and was found relatively recently. McDonald's Treasureland Adventures is a kids game from 1993. One of the programmers who worked on the game had talked about some unfound Easter eggs and secrets, but it was only recently that this one was discovered by a YouTuber named Edward Balua. He discovered that by inputting a specific password on the screen, you'd be met with a 3D model showcase. Those are normally pretty tame, but this one has some of the craziest audio I've heard, and it's for no reason. I don't know why they went so hard for a developer showcase. The way the sign moves isn't even scary, but the music could make pretty much anything seem sinister. And all of that in a McDonald's game that's been out around 20 years. I don't know, man. I just love that one. And I think that the reason I love it so much is that it fully embodies everything I've talked about here today. Video games can achieve horror in a way that I think is extremely unique, and my personal favorite method for consuming horror. I love the movies and I love the games, but there's just something about the unexpected that reigns supreme in my mind. Obviously, there's more examples than this, but these have just been a couple of my favorites. And with that, we're at the end of the video. Thanks so much for watching it. If it's interested you, I encourage you to check out my other videos. You'd like what I've got going on. I just finished an iceberg video that I put out that is scary Easter eggs and secrets in video games, and I'm extremely proud of that video. It's the part 2. The first video can be found on the Spins Rock channel, and we've got more stuff coming, and I'm just very excited. If you liked it, liked it. If you subscribed, subscribed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, gamers, with a Z.